America can afford to buy a home and qualify for a first-time buyer price range in their areas? That's pretty big, right? The number one thing when CoreLogic surveyed the people and said, why don't they? It's because they don't have the down payment. Would you agree with that when you talk to some people?
Yep.
People that really want to buy but can't because of the down payment?
Yep.
Well, if you've been in the business long enough, you understand that FHA, you can borrow from your 401ks, you can get gifts, those types of things. But there's actual grant programs that we want to talk about today. And I've asked Don T to come in and talk a little bit about it, but I wanted to give you the theory behind it first, which is really important. Raise your hand if you've been in the business before, let's say, 2010. So less than half of us. So I want to tell you what it was like back in the recession. It was a much different market. In order to get people to buy, we had to do things that other agents can't or. And one of the things that Team Bjorkman did to survive and still stay in the top 5 agents in Santa Clarita was we really focused on creative financing. Now when I say creative financing, I don't mean hard money. There's A, B, and C paper, we all know that. And I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is the grant programs, the zero down programs. Back then, towards the end of the recession, there was probably 20 or 30 different types of loans that you can get zero down. Big companies were giving out grants, colleges were giving out grants, government loan programs, state programs, county, city, geographically based. I mean, there was so many zero down programs that was just normal. So imagine today if you have a listing and you get 5 offers on the property because of our low inventory, and you look at the pre-approvals and you notice that one of them is a zero down program. These zero down programs we take and go, oh God, that sounds very scary, I don't want to deal with that. But if you were in the business back then, this was an everyday, normal thing. There's nothing wrong with them. They might take another week or 2 later to process them, but when they're pre-approved, they're no different than a 20% down conventional loan. And as agents, as our market shifts, and it will, not right now, I'm not going to scare you about that, but it will in the next year or so. Here in California, we have 5 to 7 year cycles, right? So in 2011, our market started shooting up faster than ever. What year is it today?
17.
Right. So we have a very, very false market right now. We were lucky enough to get a president that stepped up and fixed it a little bit and doing some amazing things right now for our economy. However, that isn't going to last forever. We have another year or 2. And here's my opinion on it. It's just an opinion. Last time the market changed was from 1996 and actually started to crash in 2005. Right? How many years was that? 9 years. After 9 years, there was such a buildup. It was the absolute worst recession we've had since the Depression, right? So with this particular economy that we have right now, we have the ability to push through that 9th year again. That buildup is ridiculous, right? We're starting to see a lot of loan programs loosen up. So what I want us to do as we prepare for BPOs, short sales, REO, this is another really important thing. So let's say there's thousands of buyers out here in Santa Clarita. Take Andy, for instance, my son. He can qualify for a home. He might not have the down payment. And somebody in this meeting or our mastermind last week said that we have a bunch of millennials that don't have down payments. And I did some research all week, and it's true. There's a lot of people that don't have down payments. So we need to focus a lot right now and learn how to be different. If we can pull out thousands of buyers that don't have down payments and give them to Skyline for zero down programs, and the trick is to let them know about this, right? So we've been doing a lot of learning in the last few weeks. We've been to Facebook ad classes, we learned about landing pages. We've done a lot of research and training on how to reach out to people electronically through social media, video testimonials, all these sort of things. So as you take notes and think, I want you guys to open up your minds. How could you attract these people that qualify, that have good credit? All they need is the down payment. The average first-time buyer out here makes enough income typically, to qualify and within these guidelines. And you can get a little creative like that. We can ask specific questions to Don a little bit later. But what I'm very concerned about is our company taking the lead in this. So once you specialize in something, word travels fast. And I'll give you an example. In 2005, nobody had seen a short sale forever, right? We did it after the earthquake, 96, and for a few years up until the market really started turning around. I said to my staff, I said, we need to show Santa Clarita that we specialize in short sales. People were like, no way am I going to do a short sale. So the day I first saw one in 2005 in the MLS, I said, here we go. Then I saw another one a couple weeks, another one a couple weeks. So what I did is I jumped ahead of everybody and started advertising, default advocate, short sale specialist. And people were like, what are you talking about? What's going on? But word traveled fast. So from 2005 to 2011, Team Bjorkman did 400 short sales, closed. When most people were losing everything, we were flourishing in the default market, even before we got into REO. So the biggest thing I look back is I look back and I said, how did we succeed that market? And people survived that market. And people said, every time they call me, they'd say, Mr. and Mrs. Smith around the corner referred me to you. So-and-so referred, so-and-so referred. Because what was happening is people were going, I don't know what to do. Well, the only agent I know that knows how to do these short sales is Mike Bjorkman, so we jumped ahead of it. So what I think this market is primed for is these zero down programs. Because let's extract the rest of the people that haven't bought, that want to, they're just missing a down payment. So as you listen to Don today, and Don, as they talk about it, take notes and think, could I do a mailing to all the apartment buildings? Can our title guys get apartment building addresses, not owner occupied, tenants and all that stuff? They can do a lot of things that we could mail to. We have the ability to call and get those lists and buy those lists of people's phone numbers and really make a difference in this community. So we need to, as listing agents, accept the fact that there still are grant programs and more will come back. But as buyer's agents, we have to be very savvy and say we need to be creative thinking wise, because right now sometimes the market's so good that people are like, if you don't have a down payment, but really there's commission after commission after commission being thrown away. So 2 points, if you're a listing agent, don't be afraid of them. Just cross-qual with Skyline, with Don, make sure they're qualified to do it, and treat them as normal sales, because you don't want to throw away anything. Fair? So then take notes and think of ideas. What could you do? Could you do webinars for zero down programs? Do you think if you did a Facebook ad all over the place, do you think people might jump on that webinar? I think so. If you wanted to borrow this room and have a zero down buyer seminar, do you think Don would probably come and do this with you? I think so. Would you want to knock apartments? Would you want to mail to them, non-owner occupieds? Would you want to knock or mail to those? There's so many ways to extract buyers, and it's a niche that nobody else is working right now. Don, is there an agent you can think of that's focusing on this right now exclusively?
Yeah.
Is it an area that we should?
Yes.
All right, with that being said, will Don please come up and explain to these agents so they can go out to the masses and tell them how to do that. Give them a round of applause for being here.
Thank you, sir.
So we want to get into a little bit of listing stuff today, so if we can keep it around 30 minutes.
We'll have it done before then.
Okay.
Because you did a great intro of why they need to pay attention
All right,
to
and
it
if you
as
guys will
opposed to
please give them
pumping.
100% of your attention, cell phones off and not chit chat, that would be really cool, because the people around you need to focus on this because it's really important.
Yeah, this is good stuff, and you got Don squared here, so you get a lot of good information. All right, so like Mike alluded to, and what's nice is I always applaud that Mike is always sharing with you guys great information, training. I applaud a lot of you guys are the same that show up on a regular basis and be the most knowledgeable in the industry, especially being new to the industry for a lot of you. But even if you're not, this is great information you need to know because you're learning from absolutely one of the best in the industry, especially when you just listen to Mike and his scripting and his confidence and why he's one of the best. It's pretty obvious. You guys get to copy that, and we try to push that along with at Skyline too. There's no one at Skyline that isn't an expert. I mean, we're telling everybody in our office has pretty much got 15 years plus experience. We ain't hire anybody with less than 10. We don't even bother, because this stuff is very hard. You have to actually be an expert at it. So what's really nice is there's a lot of programs out there that are available for your buyers that you don't know about or the buyers don't know, and a lot of lenders don't take the time to learn and become experts at for you and your buyers. A lot of them are too lazy, so they do FHA, VA, conventional, and that's all. If you don't fit in that box, you don't have an opportunity for your buyers. So what's nice is Skyline, guess how many products Skyline has for your buyers? Take a guess.
315.
Wow, that's pretty darn good. Somebody tell you that? We have 300 product. 300. Most, like, all those online lenders they call, they literally have between 5 and 20. That's it. So if you don't fit in that box, you don't get a loan. So, and you don't have the right FICO, you don't have that. What's nice is we have a product basically for almost anyone. And if we don't, we put them on a plan. We actually will prepare them. How nice is it 6 months from now that when we give you a call back and go, hey, remember the Smiths you talked to a while ago? They're ready to buy a home. I mean, we just hand you a $10,000 check. How about that?
That'd be nice.
So if we did that on a regular basis,
I would like you to do that on a regular
okay. So between the products we have like HPM that helps cultivate, the whole thing is Mike's, is one of the most successful, and most are, including our business. Where does most of our business come from?
Referrals.
Referrals. I mean, we appreciate all your referrals. That gives us more opportunities, of course, but most of our business comes from, I'd say 60 to 70% usually comes from your own database, friends, family, whatever, and then you go and pursue the others to build that database. That's what most top producers out here have, a great database. They've learned that. So what better way to find ways to get more people in that others don't? Meaning a grant program, zero down program, to get them in. You want to talk about the most loyal buyer in your life is the one who didn't think they were getting in, and you got them into a home. Have you ever handed keys to anyone that said, oh, I wish you wouldn't have done that? I don't want to buy a home.
No.
You hand them those keys, they're loyal, and guess what they're going to do? They're going to tell everyone that they got into a home because they didn't think they can get into a home. So they're going to brag about how they got into the home. So we are experts at it. Don T is the expert in our office at grant programs. We actually do them. We understand them. We give you little highlights.
Them.
We close them.
It's not just a program out there that's being sold. We've actually closed them.
And I brought the expert in because I'm just teeing it up. He's going to give you the specific because he does this daily. Because even I hand him like, oh, you don't have quite the down yet? Don T, and he'll figure it out, and when he goes through the details, you'll go, holy crap, there's a lot of buyers that have an opportunity to get into a home. And also those first time buyers, do you realize that a lot of them, they have family members, grandparents, dads. You get them in for that, let's just say they're $400,000 home, their $200,000 condo. Their dad has $1 million home that goes, thank you for helping my child get into a home and get them out of my house. They're pumped. They're loyal to you, and that's really what you want. And I can guarantee you that we know the system, and if somebody does bring one to you, like I said, we'll cross-call and make sure the lender know, because literally, there's not even a handful of lenders out here that even work with grant programs or zero down programs or VA. We actually do more VA loans than Wells Fargo.
Wow.
They do conventional box cutter loans. We do it all, and that's because we want to be experts for your buyers. We offer every option, and this is legit. This is not us just the sales pitch. We have all these products. So Don T is going to go through the specifics, and these are just highlights because we can't get in there. So of course, guideline. We don't want to bore you with that, but even this helped me know that the finer details of how this works so that you're at least somewhat articulate and you go, no, this works. If you have a 645, go, there's income limits. I have an idea what the income limits are, and they just were raised, by the way. Really cool. So Don T is going to go through the specifics, and then we'll answer questions because you'll have a couple questions on how that can work for your buyer. But really, realistically, you're going to want to reach out to us, and we'll go through the details. And everyone at Skyline, including the rest of our team that show up, they know it, or we all work together, and they'll go to Don going, how do we do this for my buyer? So we'll make sure you guys are all set up and ready to go. So I'm going to hand it over to Don T. We call him that because basically both have the same.
Yeah.
We've known each other, believe it or not, since I was 12.
I wasn't 12, he was 12.
I was trying, Don.
So my real name is Don Tisinovich, but most people can't pronounce the last part, and since there are two of us, I do go by Don T. But it really gets to me, my fellow co-workers call me Don T when face to face. It's like, wait a minute, So I start calling them by their first name, last initial. It's like,
Well,
Tony V.
Well, he's also, we have to be careful of that too, because first name, last name, he's don't.
Yeah.
And then I can't say what mine is. Think about it.
Don G, come back and sit down. I love you, but shut up.
Do you know that any of the loan officers at Skyline are just as good at this as I am? You know, I do them, I'm here, Don referred me as the expert. It's just because I do structure these for our team, but anybody, if you're working with any of the other loan officers, they can do the same thing, okay? So if you look at your sheet, FHA, we do FHA, VA, USDA. There is an income limit of $84,295. It just went up. It was like in 80,000, so they increased it a little bit, and it's nice. This is the people that are going to be qualifying for the loan, the household income of the people qualifying. So if there's somebody that we're not using their income to qualify, that's not counted in there. FHA, VA available grants up to 5%. USD is only up to 3%. The grant programs are nice because they can be used towards down payment. Most down payment assistance programs are only for closing costs. This one can be for down payment and or closing costs. So it's like, hey, I'm a little short. I've got part of it covered, but I need a little bit more help on one or the other. It can go either way. Minimum on the FHA is 3.5% down, 30-year fixed. Minimum FICO is 640, so we do have people trying to start at 600, 602, and we'll work with them to get their FICO scores up. So everybody thinks, well, I have to wait. Not necessarily. We'll run their credit. We'll look at their credit and see if there's something we can see to help them. We have a credit simulator which allows us to put in and say, I have $3,000, how do I raise my credit score? And it will tell us what to pay off, what to pay down to get the credit score up to that point where we can do one of these loans. And we do those all the time. So just because they have a lower FICO score that might not qualify for this right now doesn't mean that a week, 2 weeks, a month later that we can't get them high enough to do it. They don't have to go to a credit specialist, credit repair, and pay the money to try to get their scores up.
Rapid rescore.
When you hear us talk about rapid rescore, that's what it is. We're putting it through a simulator. We're telling them, pay this off, pay this down, give us a letter from the creditor showing us that this was done, and then we'll do a rapid rescore, and that gets their score up. Debt to income ratio on an FHA is 45%. Origination fee, 1.5%. So a lot of times what I do is I will use a 5% grant program because we're hitting them for 1.5 points on this. That's what the fees are. That's what California charges us, so we pass that on. Interest rate on the programs may vary slightly higher. So it could be an eighth higher than an FHA loan. Using a grant program for 3%, it might be, you know, 0.5 to 0.75% higher on a 5% grant. It does graduate if you use a 3, 4, or 5% grant program. The interest rate does go higher. Can be used on single-family residence, condos, no manufactured homes. And what's nice is this is a grant. It doesn't have to be repaid. A lot of the down payment assistance programs, they might be simple interest rates, 3%. They have a lien on the house as a second. The grant program is a grant. It's money that is being given, that you qualify for, is being given to you, no repayment, and it's not a lien against the house.
For the VA grant, can you also use a portion of that to cover the VA funding fee?
Good question.
Yep. Any of the closing costs can be covered by the grant program. Okay?
On the grants, do they apply for the grant kind of like a pre-approval and they're told, yes, we're going to grant you this much money, or is it something that happens during escrow?
It happens during escrow. So what we're doing is actually doing the pre-approval, and we're running it through, and I do automated underwrite simulators. I'm looking at it, we're going through, we're making sure that they qualify. So we're looking at the guidelines. These are not the guidelines, there's a lot of other things involved. And we're looking at the guidelines to make sure that they're gonna qualify, that they have the FICO score, the debt to income, the income isn't too high. And then when we go into escrow, then it will be applied at that time.
And you'll know how much they can qualify for, or how much the grant is gonna be for, or?
The loan officer actually, and the borrower will pick that dollar amount, or
Oh.
that program, if it's 3, 4, or 5%. There are times that a 3% won't work. There's not enough money coming because of the origination charge. So instead of using a 3%, we may say, well, you need 4%. They may not want to do 5% because they're saying, well, wait, I don't need that money. I have some extra money. I don't mind it. I don't want anybody to be house poor. I don't want to deplete all their checking and savings. But I had a client that they started off with $685 wanting to buy a house. It's like, hey, you don't qualify, you need to cover. We used a grant program. We were able to get a gift. We were able to get them into a house because of the combination. So they didn't have a lot, but with the grant program, gifts, other sources, we were able to get them into something.
If one of our clients uses one of these grant programs and they take the higher interest rate to receive the largest grant at 5%, is it just the minimum of 6 months' time before they could refi or streamline it into a lower rate?
Yeah,
Okay, so there's no additional minimum.
there's no path, no. Renee?
Hey Don, do they have to take some classes?
Yes. There is, for first-time home buyers have to apply and take a class online. It's pretty simple. I can't remember, yeah, it's pretty simple and straightforward, and it's not like it has to be a specific one. It is one, that we would tell them, choose amongst here. You can go online and look here, and they'll give you several. You can do them online, you can go in person.
Is there a cost to take the class?
Some do and some don't. There actually, I've seen some that don't have a cost, but I know some of them do too.
Just curious, because then you could say,
Yeah,
offer to pay for it.
but it's minimal too.
Now, I feel like the Sapphire and some of the DAISY programs ran out of money and funding.
This one is by the state. FHA earlier this year started saying, no, we're not going to do these anymore. We don't have the funds. They kept the conventional ones open, but they came back and they have the funds for the FHA.
Correct.
We haven't seen it, and I haven't had an experience where they've run out of the money on these. I know some do. You get into later part of the year and all of a sudden we don't have any more money. I haven't seen it with the grant programs yet.
Great.
Last question for this one.
Yeah, right.
So,
Bonnie.
with this particular, it's all good questions though.
It is.
Help me to help you. So with this income limit of 84,295, is that household limit, or do you get periodic adjustments for the more number of dependents?
No, this one is household limit. Unlike some of the other down payment assistance programs are graduated by how many people are in the household, but those limits are a lot lower than these limits are.
Okay, they'll start in the 60s.
Yeah, 50s.
Yeah.
But down in the 50s, like 52,000 for some of the CalHAPA programs for a single person. So the Freddie Mac program, the income limit's higher, it's 107,520. You have 3, 4, 5% grant programs available. Minimum 3% down, up to 105% CLTV. 30-year fixed, minimum score still 640. Debt to income ratio, they just raised this. It used to be 45%, now it's 50%. When I talk debt to income ratio, does everybody know what that is? So we're qualifying the borrower off of their monthly debt, their total monthly debt, car, student loans, credit cards, and their house payment, divided by their total monthly income. So the Freddie Mac was at 45, they just raised it to 50 when they raised the income limit. So that's kind of nice. It's giving us a little more leeway on that purchase price. We can go up higher. Origination fee, again, 1.5%. Interest rate on the grant programs do vary depending. The more of the grant program, the higher the rate's going to be. Again, single-family residence, condos, no manufactured home, and again, the grants don't have to be repaid. Questions? Oh, come on. Today.
Debt, cell phones. You guys take into consideration people's monthly? No?
No, we don't, not utilities, not cell phones, it's credit card, what's going to be reported on a credit report. So student loans are going to be there, your credit cards are going to be there, car payments, anything like that. That's what we're using. But the housing payment is inclusive of HOA, so if you're buying a condo, the HOA is a factor that we bring in. If it has mellow roofs, we have to hit them for the mellow roofs. So we've seen it where somebody's buying and we've got them maxed out. We're saying, hey, you can go up to 650,000 purchase price and you can put, 5 or 10% down, and then all of a sudden they go find something in Tesoro and it's got a mellow roof and it's like, well, you can't afford that much. Well, why? You told me.
Your
It-
agent didn't tell you.
Yeah, it's an overall, so we have to account for all of that when we're doing it. So anytime your loan officer is talking to you what they qualify for, we're looking at a sales price and we're giving you a general, because we don't know the specifics until you find a property, until you say they're really interested in this one. And I have one that just went into escrow 2 days ago with the Mello-Roos. We usually calculate property taxes at 1.25%. With the Mello-Roos on this one, it's 2.05%. Guess what? It changed qualifying. Luckily, we have the income on this one, but it can affect it that much. Yes?
I have a question. It's not really about the FHA or Freddie Mac, but do you guys have a program where you're purchasing a second home without 20% down?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little more about that?
That, I can't do it off the top of my head. I work, like Don said, we have 300 programs. I
But
can't keep
basically,
them.
there's almost standard guidelines for a second home. So you can get in, 5% down or whatever. You just gotta qualify for both homes, that's the key. Investment properties, you're able to use the rental income, 75% of the estimated rental income based on a survey from the appraiser.
Yeah, but if you're living in that home, purchasing your second home, you don't have a rental income
Right,
yet.
then, that's why I say
You have to qualify for both.
For both, and then,
Yeah, both payments.
gotcha.
Don, how is credit affected with bankruptcies on these?
Pretty
Is
standard
it
guidelines.
3 years?
No, it's more.
Is it, that's what I
Yeah,
heard
it's
the
more.
other day, that's what I
Like
wanted to
4?
ask.
Yeah. It's gonna be, it might even be 5. I'm gonna say 4, but it might be 5
Yeah, we'll
on
look at it and add it
bankruptcies.
to our highlights.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that went through that, right after,
Yeah.
during the recession, so I was curious about that. So can you assume that if people fit these guidelines, that they will qualify for the grant, or is
Yes.
there other things?
There are, again, this isn't the guidelines, we did some highlights.
Mm-hmm.
But we just wanted to present to you to say, these are possibilities.
What are the things that could kibosh the
A
ability?
foreclosure, a bankruptcy, a mortgage late, obviously, you wouldn't have a mortgage late in this case. Late payments, a lower FICO score,
So if you have a 650 FICO score and a couple late payments, that could hurt you.
yeah.
It goes through an automated underwriting
Underwriting.
system, so it looks at all the parameters. So, like you said, a couple of things here and there could push it out, but we do run it through the system to know, yeah, you're good or not.
So take these slower.
Yeah, when we look at something, it's not off of the top of our heads, we try to analyze it. I have done loans where I look at a conventional, they have 20% down, they have a FICO score in 690, their bankruptcy was 7 years old, it's past the 4-year guideline, everything looked good for the purchase. When I ran it through the automated underwriting system, it would not give me an approval. It did not like the credit. And the reason in this particular case is the individual didn't reestablish his credit after the BK. He didn't go out and get a new credit card and make monthly payments on it. Everything went under his wife's name. He paid cash. He bought something and paid it off in 6 months. It wasn't a long enough credit history. It didn't like $100 and want to buy a house, and it's like, So then we start scrambling, and I don't want you to say, hey, I've got a grant program, you can get in with nothing. No, it's something to help them get in. But
Seller can still pay costs though.
seller can still pay a cost.
So you say they have to come in with some, okay, so based on that 315 purchase price, what would they need to have?
Probably $6,000 or $7,000. It can be gift, it can be seller credit, it can't be a lender credit because the rates are fixed on the grant programs. So
What's the
it's
$6,000 gonna go towards that they have to have?
closing costs or down payment.
Because the 15 grand's gonna cover the closing costs
Then you have the down payment.
As long as they have the down.
and some of the
So-
down, yeah.
15,000, I'm gonna have 5% of 315,000 is, 315 is the 15,000. So I'm gonna have to cover all of the down payment or all of the closing costs or a little combination.
But the seller can also pick up.
Yes,
Down.
yes.
And then first time buyer parameters, so what if they haven't owned a home in how many years can they qualify?
I'm gonna say it's 3, as long as it doesn't appear on tax returns for 3 years.
How does the PMI work on both programs? Normal, FHA?
Yeah, well, no, actually, it's a reduced PMI program on the grant programs.
On Freddie Mac?
Yes, on both.
Wow.
Well, no, not on
only on Freddie Mac.
FHA is the same, Freddie Mac is lower.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So instead of 25% being required, it's 16% on a 5% down. So 95 LTV, the normal is 25% coverage, and it's only a 16%.
Which helps make up a little bit of the difference if they're in a higher interest rate because they're taking a grant. The reduced MI could basically offset that, which is really nice. And it's not a huge difference in interest rate, really.
I was gonna say, it'll even out.
You said no more. Anybody else?
I said no more about the other one.
I told you.
Credit score assistance, are there extra fees for that, and do they pay those up front?
When we do it, no. What we're doing is only advising. We're saying, here's something. The success rate is 85% when we do a credit rescore. It's not 100%. I can say if you pay down this debt, if you pay off this debt, if you do this and you get me letters from the creditor showing what the new balances are, and we do our credit rescore, we're 85–90% successful at getting that score that we're shooting for. So if I'm shooting for a 640 score, if they had like 620, I'm actually shooting for like 645, 650 to make sure I'm going to get my 640. So I'm going to look at it and say, here's what you need to do to get the score, projected score, and then when we do the rescore, we're going to hit that target. But it's not, we don't charge for it. If you went to a credit repair, they're going to charge you, and then it's just going to take forever.
Speaking of the credit repair, we get asked a lot, how legitimate or how good or effective are the credit repair companies out there?
Everyone's different, you know.
I mean, I personally feel like most of the stuff they can do themselves with the advice of a good.
That's where we go because we don't really trust most of them because we don't want our name stamped on them because they are all different. And everybody's scenario is different. So it's we're really careful on even being aligned with most credit repair companies. We usually give them our advice of what they can do to be done.
And the other thing, when we run it through our automated underwriting system, I had an individual that had so many collections, my first glance at it is, it's not gonna fly, no way. Ran it through the automated underwriting system and those collections were so old, it said not a problem, they don't have to be paid back.
Wow.
And he only had one credit card and we got a score, and it's like, I couldn't believe it. So, Renee?
I just want to give you props because on that Saturday morning, you sat with those people who had $500 and they wanted to buy a house, and you went through the programs with them, and you put them on a plan, and they got a gift, and you helped them so much, and they had
Thank you.
nothing. So I just want to give you props. I mean, we know what they did in the end, but
Yeah.
you did give them props. And
But
to
they-
mention, to speak to Anita or Cindy, on the question about seller's credit, I think we wrote an offer that it was that 5,000 over list
Yeah.
price.
And-
So then
and
the
then-
seller was able to, you know, say, I'll give you something back. We wrote it over as long as the price.
You're just
we were fine.
financing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to look at different combinations on to instruct the buyers on how to help, and we'll work with you in saying, here's a way to present an offer. So, you know, I'll explain it to the borrower and we're gonna go face to face and we're gonna talk and say, here's what you need to do. You know, the seller's still gonna get all of their money out of it, but we need some help on those closing costs now.
All right, and I think this kind of ponies off what you were saying. I was looking at these highlights for the second program, the Freddie Mac, and if you can get up to a 5% grant, but you have the origination fee of 1.5 points, that leaves 3.5 points left available, minimum of 3 points down, so you still have 0.5 point in surplus. But in doing so, you can actually do the loan up to 105. So this is if you do right over whatever the ask is, but have the credit back for the closing costs, then pending appraisal, could you absolutely come in with literally the $600 buyer? And wouldn't that particular scenario be
Well,
feasible?
the 105% is actually if you were going to do maybe a CalHAFA program on top of the grant program.
You actually get a third, believe it or not. We didn't want to go into that.
That gets a little too much. It's more
But,
convoluted.
I mean, just
Yeah, we had
looking at
we
these, it
actually
seems
closed
like
3 of those. now.
Okay, like Renee was saying, we were working with a borrower that left her. We still did the loan. Sorry about that. I feel bad.
Calm down,
But,
calm down.
yeah, but
Hello.
he started with $600. He and his wife wanted to buy a place, and they were looking at a $200,000 place. It wasn't, you know, super expensive, but for $600 you can't buy it. But we did a grant program. We looked at it at 5%. He still needed money. He was able to get a gift from his family, and it covered the earnest money deposit, and then we threw in a little seller's credit, and we covered the whole thing. So they started off with hardly anything, and we were able to structure it and put it together with a combination of things.
so for this Freddie Mac or whatever, it's not necessarily 105% that you could go, or
CLTV.
Okay. With the first, second, and third, that's the only way you can get up to the 105 is if you get a CalHAF of third on it, which is a whole nother option that we could get into at that point if we need to. We didn't want to put it on these guidelines and have you guys start running around saying we get first, second, and thirds. And
What we're doing is literally presenting one program here. Don's talking about a down payment assistance program that's the CalHAFA, which is totally separate, and it is second liens, it is paid back, all of these other things. This
We'll
one
do
is
a class
totally
on that
different.
next, and then we also have a tax credit training that we'll do called the MCC credit that will give your clients a 20% reduced reduction on the property tax.
Not on their property taxes, on their income taxes at the end of the year.
We'll put the time into it, but we will, and that's about a 0.5% reduction in rate, basically.
Yeah, and the MCC credit can be used to help for qualifying. So we use it not just to help them save money on their taxes at the end of the year, but it also reduces their payment, so it helps them qualify. We try not to use it for that purpose, but we have lately, in the last couple of months, where somebody's borderline, we throw an MCC in there, and it's like, wham, we're good to go.
This might take me a little bit. On these programs where we're using the grants or using the money for down payment and I know closing costs, is there any particular verbiage that the lender requires on the purchase agreement?
No,
Like we used to have to do?
no.
No?
What, now, if you were getting into a seller's credit, we ask that it's credit towards recurring and non-recurring closing costs. Never use the word repair.
Right.
Yeah, back in the day, we had to put verbiage in because they had to stay in the home up to 7 years, or that they had to pay back some of the
Yeah.
down payment assistance back then. Remember the cap?
No, not on the grant program.
CAFA.
Any other questions?
Awesome.
Great job.
Give me a hand, guys. Good job. So I wanted to point out a few things. If you guys are going to do advertising for these types of loans, get a very clear in writing description on what legally you need to put on the bottom for disclosure. You know, rates, APRs, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. So work with them as a team. Don't just say, I can get you 0 down programs. You can get yourself in a lot of trouble with the BRE. There has to be separate disclosure on the bottom of this. We did a couple of these in the last several months, and I wanted to point out both scenarios were relationship based, because some of you are sitting here going, you know, in this particular market, you know, multiple offers, low inventory. Now you want me to get a buyer in a down payment assistance program and get the seller to pay closing costs? You're out of your mind. The reality is your relationship with the other agents in this town are crucial. They need to understand that you need to be able to talk to them, but most importantly, they need to like you. So remember, you guys, your attitudes out there when you're dealing with other agents, it matters, right? Well, I was able to sit down with somebody, explain to them, and I was able to get our offer pushed through. This one was happened to be in the MLS. I got ours pushed through over better offers, well, better as far as more down payment, but my relationships make those go through. This is also something that's very important about, for reals, finding off-market properties. We just did that podcast not too long ago, so if you want to learn how to find off-market properties, this is a really good way to do that too. And again, like they said, be very slow with these people. Don't just start throwing offers out there without making sure that's pre-approved. We run into trouble with that a lot of times. We only have how many minutes here? About 10, 15 minutes. So I want to, first of all, I want to push the real listing presentation class off till next week now, because it's about an hour-long class. I thought that would be like 20 minutes. In order to do it right, we need some more time. But I want to tell you guys a real story that happened last night. So Monday, I came in here to find, we had a stack of listing presentations under here that were pre-printed out that we use for a different class. So I put it in my briefcase knowing that yesterday I was training Northridge down there, and right afterwards, I was going to Ojai to put a $3 million ranch on the market. So it just so happened that I knew I wasn't coming back here. I wanted to look and make sure I had that for this class today. I threw it in my briefcase, didn't even think anything about it. So last night I went to this house, and it was a kind of a come list me thing, because there was a family member that wanted to buy it. There was a 70-year-old woman that wanted me to come in to represent her, not the other agent, because he was trying to represent both and she was freaking out about it. So a friend of mine brought me down. So this lady asked me, Mike, what happens if this buyer doesn't follow through? I said, no problem, we'll just put it on the market. So at that point, it instantly turned into a listing presentation, which I was not prepared for at all, right? I was like, whoa, wow, that just switched really quickly. So a couple things happened. I started asking her questions. How many agents have you talked to? Well, I didn't know, but I always ask the questions. There is some guy and another girl that kind of own the Ojai area. I don't work Ojai. I know nothing about Ojai, right? I've only been there a couple times, and it was golfing and wine tasting. I know nothing. All right? So I know nothing about Ojai. And she's 70 years old, and I asked her, what did they show you? Why did you call them? I don't know, but I see their signs when I drive up and down. She's been there since the 70s, right? And I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. So she goes, I've seen these signs for the last 10, 15, 20 years. That's why I had them over. And I said, well, what did they show you that made you want to list with them? And she goes, they didn't show me anything. I said, they didn't show you a listing presentation, your marketing presentation? And she goes, no. So I had my briefcase and I pulled this thing out, and I actually spruced it up to show you guys how nice it really could be, because you know we're lazy in our team, we just throw the comps in and throw it. So I made it look nice. I took a picture of a house and I put it in the folder. So I pulled it out and I said, this is what we at HomeSmart do to get homes sold. And it was kind of one of those things where I didn't want to intimidate her anymore with my computer. I was already running spreadsheets and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, learning about 1031 exchange, because this is a $3 million property and there's trusts and there's other parcels involved. It was a nightmare. So I could tell this lady's head was already smoking. So I just said, let's just go through some paper and I'll show you. And it was the exact HomeSmart listing presentation that I tell you guys we've been using for the past year. We used the one that I put, at least our little Team Bjorkman logo on and stuff. This had nothing. It said HomeSmart Real Estate. As a matter of fact, the thing said prepared for Mr. and Mrs. Smith on the darn thing. So I pulled it out of the side pockets, and I left it with her to show it to her. I don't even know if we have another one. But the point, what I want to go through with you guys is I went through this presentation in about 20 minutes, and it worked like clockwork. If you guys remember Todd Sumney, when I was in Phoenix for a couple days, him and I worked on this listing presentation a lot. And we said, this is the 6 steps necessary in selling your home. And I went through it with this lady, and it was so perfect. Because not only was it not prepared, I was not mentally prepared for it. I happened to have the darn thing. I have it on my laptop and I can show you. But what I did on my laptop, it got full, and I dragged all my stuff over to Drive and deleted my laptop for the most part. And what I did, I was hooked up to her Wi-Fi, but it sucked. It was like dial-up. And I didn't necessarily wanted to go to my Drive to download the PowerPoint and show her the PowerPoint, so I used just the paperwork also. But what I wanted to show you guys real quick is what I used. And I think this is the normal one. And it's not even a PowerPoint, this is just a PDF. I don't know what just happened. There it is. So if you can imagine me telling this lady, so I went through, why is this so big? Maybe I can make it smaller. That's too small, right? I guess it doesn't matter. Go big. There we go. So this thing was printed out like this, right? It didn't have anything custom on it, and I just said, let's go through the steps with her. So I went through, and this page was even customized. It showed through the little diamond of our folders. So I just went through, I said, here's the 6 steps of selling your house, and I kind of went on there. You know, one of the things I'm here is I'm going to determine your needs. Let's find out really what you want to do, and I'll show you. Now, I've been through a lot of schooling for sales, right? And I know that a 70-year-old woman, and I mean no disrespect, thinks like a 15-year-old kid or younger. That's what happens to a mind at that age. So she was very nervous, right? And this is her retirement, and this is everything. So I said, let's just simply do this on paper. And this is what I went through with an LOI from another agent. And I said, are we going to move, yes or no? And I said yes, and I circled yes. And this makes people feel very comfortable. And notice I used paper and not my computer because I wanted to simplify things. So as I'm going through this, I was using this presentation, and I can't even believe I showed you guys that, but that's really, that's how you sell, right? So I was going through this presentation, and here's what I talked about. Let's talk about the upgrades and remodels and additions. Now, she's been in this home since the 70s. She's in tears thinking about moving, right? She said to me, I feel like an old horse being put out to pasture. Now, she has a blinged out cowboy shirt on, cute as heck, with a little cowboy hat on, and there must be 60 horses, and they're running a full-blown, like, working ranch off this property. So I started talking about this stuff, and I started filling this in, okay? As I'm going through this, what are the top 3 reasons you purchased this home? Well, she said back in the 70s, my husband used to fish for steelhead trout, the creek that used to go through here. And we went through this process, and I just went through the whole thing. We went back to why you're selling, and I had this perfectly good story, and I went back to this picture, so we're still moving. So I went through this thing, and I said, what other notes am I going to take, right? And I actually had the client that referred me to her with me, so she was taking notes on this paper and taking notes like that. So we went over, we talked about the company a little bit, we talked about the market. I kind of blew through this stuff. I didn't want to blow her mind anymore. But I started talking to her about, oh, that is dark. See how easy this is to edit? It's like ridiculous, and this is old. But I started to go through a little bit of tools and technology. And one of the reasons I did this is because you guys have heard this story before. I went to Santa Barbara when Realtor.com first came out. And Realtor.com, the guy that was speaking for them, said something to me. He said 36% of the people will list with you because you have the technology. not because you know how to use it. So, but what he was saying back then was, don't be afraid. Just say you have the technology. You don't need to understand things, because this is when websites were first coming out, CRMs were first starting coming out, and I always remembered that. So I always spent tons of money on the Dell laptops, made them all look bitchin' and blew people's minds. Like when you did a PowerPoint on a Dell laptop with a wireless thing back then, people would be like, where do I sign? So I always remember that. So I mean, if you could picture that, and this is a long time ago, but I started talking about simple things, our single property website. And I started talking to how we'd market that a little bit for him, how we put that on social media. And she's like, oh, the Facebook thing? Yeah, the Facebook thing. And we talked about how I could even show her on her phone. And I picked up her phone and I did HomeSmart International. And I showed her how we search for houses. And it was just a really unique opportunity. And I said, look, all these websites it's going to go on. And I started going through this. And it obviously, if you're a guest, I apologize. We're going to go through this a lot more next week as I explain how to sell the stock best listing presentation in the industry. But I started going, and this was funny. She's all, is SmartTube like that YouTube? I said, yeah, we started talking about that. Cutest little thing in the world. But even better, I even went through this dictionary with her. I said, let me ask you a question. Did the other agents spend the time to explain to you this process? What does this mean? And I started going through some of the things with her. And she's like, I've heard of that. I don't know what that means. I said, this is the process that I'm going to walk through with you. Now, can you guys imagine what personality style she is at this point? Is that my favorite personality style to deal with? Hell no. Right? But I know what an extra $90,000 commission will do for my family, right? I know how many beers I can have in a bucket at Cabo, right? So I think about these things. And I know what a Just Sold postcard and the way we promote our Just Solds might help promote us down there. So I'm thinking about all these things. So I go through this listing agreement with her. The actual listing agreement, so of course I had one. And now she's just so blown away, it's not even funny. And then I started talking about how we're going to help her get the home ready for showings. Moving, that was a really big deal. Talked to her about our USPs with the moving company and our relationship with Casey Kirkman and all that sort of stuff. But the bottom line is, when I got to the end of this, I started talking to her about our easy exit listing agreement. So the thing that was so beautiful, it was unexpected. I used our exact presentation that wasn't even customized to our team. It was straight out. It worked like a charm. She's giving me a hug at the end of the day. She empowered me to list the home and call her the other broker and tell him to pound sand. So to me, I'm already spending that money, right? It's a done deal. So, but the power of that listing presentation was unbelievable. So we're driving down the windy canyon and my client's about ready to throw up, and we're going down to Brophy's and the Ventura Harbor to go eat. And she looks at me and she goes, that was by far the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen. And she's in sales, different industry, but she's worked for a lot of different companies, a lot. And she knows you. She worked in your same last industry.
Oh.
So it was very interesting to hear. She was just like, I'm blown away. I cannot believe what I just saw. And I cannot believe the way you took care of her and went through that paperwork with so much patience. And I actually saw, and it's her aunt, and I actually saw my aunt's face just start from like really stressed out to just calm. And then when she gave you that hug, I knew the job was yours. Mm-hmm. And all it was going through this listing presentation, and it was just crazy. It was worth the 101 traffic that I dealt with on the way home. So we're gonna go through this a lot. We're gonna go through this next week. I'm gonna tell you guys how to customize it. And not only that, I wanted to let you in on a little secret that's kind of new. So I work with a lot of you guys individually. This is a 5-minute download off our RSA, right? There's a lot of agents that I talk to that are still afraid of our super simple marketing. Download it, you click on it, turn Mike to Tom, Tom to Cindy. It's that simple. The PowerPoint is in Keynote, it's in PowerPoint, it's in PDF, it's in everything. It's a team, it's not a team. So what I've done is I made an alliance with Phyllis Brooks. Do you guys know her? Main Street Graphics? She just did Lolo stuff. So I've actually brought her into my private office as a HomeSmart advocate or whatever. So she has actually taken the time to go through all of our marketing. She's downloaded everything that we have. Listing presentations, for sale, just listed and sold postcards, every one of our flyers, and there's hundreds if you guys have gone through this. She has them all on her desktop and she's learning every single one of them. So now, for a very inexpensive rate, you can call her and say, I want this, that, that, and she'll give you a small price to get that, send it to the printer, and sell it to you really, really cheap. So if you don't want to do it online, you could have somebody here in town actually do it for you. So for instance, I would say, Phyllis, I would love for you to download the listing presentation. I'd like to sit with you for a few minutes, take these pages out, put my custom pages in, and then we can go ahead and have a customized listing presentation, dirt cheap, that you can have, and then we'll have somebody on standby if you hire a team member, or fire a team member, or get some new marketing, HBM you throw in there, whatever it is. Now you have somebody that knows our software, knows our brands and everything like that. She has all of our fonts, all of our color palettes. She can create anything now. So that's really cool. And then on top of that, I think I'm going to hire somebody today for our new marketing person. So our new marketing person is going to be at this office twice a week and Northridge 3 days a week. And what she's going to do is she's going to learn all of our tools inside and out to be supportive with that. But not only that, for $300 a file, she's going to be doing all your Facebook, your business page, your Pinterest, your Twitter, all your social media, posting once a week for every one of your listings. And then she's also going to do your Realtor.com, your Zillow, your Trulia, your Homes.com, all that stuff. She's going to be trained on our HomeSmart websites, so she could customize your website, put the videos up on there, add different tabs and things like that. So that person will be there for you too, so we can actually use the amazing tools that HomeSmart has, and you can actually go out there and kick butt. So the theory behind this is, if you hire her, so we all know, right, you guys all came from other companies, if you used our TC for $300, our marketing person for $300, and paid the HomeSmart fees, it's still less than you pay at any other company, right? So it's almost having a whole team at your beck and call, and that's what I'm trying to create, and that's what we are creating. But imagine what happens if you have a little bit of help doing all that syndication and all that social media for you. It's going to blast you out there. It's just going to help you get more buyer leads, get more seller leads, promote our company, and at the end of the day, it's a win-win for everybody. The most important part of this is that will be another option. When you use our escrow, you'll get that person for free if you want that instead of the TC.
Smart.
Cool? So that's about it. Hi, Martha. How are you? Did you guys realize that